standings tonight, but we're starting to have a sense of who is going to contend in the Contender Series and who's going to fall off quickly. Let's head to Google Earth now and show you where we are in the world. We're maybe about an hour outside of downtown Los Angeles proper, up towards the mountains, where this was an old industrial park, Devin Henry, but now is, at least for this point, a 2-mile D-shaped oval.
Well, it could also become industrial again, but I'm going to go besides that. This is one of the most fun tracks in the real-life NASCAR circuit. You have those turns that are only actually 14 degrees of banking. It feels like so much more. And when you hit that back straightaway, it's 2,500 feet in length with a slight 3-degree banking, so different than that D-shaped front straightaway. 11 degrees of banking, almost the exact same as what is in the turns, and a much longer 600 foot more, 3,100 feet down that front straight. Everyone knows that you need momentum on corner exit to capitalize down the straightaways and maybe even use a little bit of that draft to do some overtaking.
Maybe, just maybe. A little closer look here at the race on tap for us this evening. 100 laps, 200 miles, right in the ballpark of 320 kilometers. Pit road speed 55 miles an hour. Your fuel window about 44 to 46 laps. So you are likely going to need a splash of gas if this race goes green the full way through. 5 sets of tires available to us in the pits, and Mitchell DeYoung went to victory in Southern California, a win at his home track in the Contender Series a year ago, which he then parlayed into a runner-up series in the runner-up finish in the Coke Series in 2021. So good precedent set for whoever ends up winning tonight's race. But for now, we're just waiting here with about a minute left in qualifying. And how about Kyle Pettle with the fast time? He's a driver who's not had the best of starts to this series. Josh Lee certainly would not mind the good track position to kick off tonight's race.
You're talking about Kyle Pettle at the front. I want to talk about Femi Olot, who's sitting in second place right now. Great time for him getting started here in qualifying. You go one position down. You find that driver that is on the cut line, tied with 3 other drivers for that cut line. Alan Bowes, who sits currently in third on the speed charts. Seems like those drivers that had less than stellar performances at both Phoenix and Homestead are coming into this race with a little bit more fire. They're coming into this race with a little bit of a better car to try and get themselves some more points as we go into the middle portion of this season. That is really going to be the test of who's consistent enough to get into that Coke Series.
Consistency, because Devin, as we've said many times over, it isn't necessarily about winning every week. If you can finish top 20 every single race, you are almost certainly going to go Coke Series racing. That's all you need to do. This is not about winning the title. It's just about being one of the 20 best. As we will now turn our attention to the starting grid and tell you where your favorite driver will begin tonight's race, as Kyle Pettle does hang on to top spot, and he qualifies P1, first pole of this Contender iRacing Series for 2021 with a 40.033 lap time. Femi Olot will start to his outside. Alan Bowes and Cody Bias roll off from third and fourth. Anthony Burrows and Blake Reynolds complete the top 6, Josh.
It will be Colin Keister starting there in the inside of row 4. Santiago Tires to his outside. How about Justin Bolton sitting there inside of row 5? Colin Bowden rounds out the top 10. Jordy Lopez, Blade Witt, both going to be on row 6.
Row number 7 starts off with Donovan Strauss on the inside, Brian Schoenberg on the outside of him. Row 8 is set up by Ryan Doucette and Jake Matheson. Jake Nichols and Derek Bordeaux round out your first 9 rows.
Brian Mercurio, Derek Justice starting at 19th and 20th. Brandon McKissick and Seth DeMerchant in row 11. Row 12 is where you'll find Blake McCandless and Parker Retzlaff.
Back from there on row 13, Casey Tucker to the inside. Liam Brotherton going to go to the outside. The dominant driver from Phoenix, Nicholas Shelton, starts to the inside of row 14. How about Taylor Hurst? He had a pretty good run at Homestead. He sits outside of row 14. Michael Cozy Jr. and Briar LaPrade sits outside of row 15.
Garrett Lowe in row 16 alongside Brad Davies. Christian Pedersen and Ashton Crowder make up the 17th row. Zach Nichols and Malik Ray in row 18.
Final 3 starters in this race: Dylan Ault, Caden Honeycutt, and Daniel Everhart. Last man on the grid. A 39-car field to take to this track this evening in Southern California. Air temperature in sim currently 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds headed to the west now at 12 miles an hour under clear skies. The in-sim time is November 20th, 2021, this upcoming Saturday, right after 12:15 p.m. local time. And once again, another look at the race analysis, going for 100 laps, 200 miles, 322 kilometers for these drivers. The road speed 55 miles an hour. And again, that fuel window going to be the most important thing to watch, as we'll now go down to pit road and hear from our pit reporter, Justin Prince, for the first time. Justin, what are the drivers and teams saying about that fuel window, and how do they plan to attack pit strategy in tonight's race?
That's a good question, because for a lot of the drivers, the discussion was, do they try and do what was seen in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series by some and go for a one-stop, or do they go for the traditional two-stop? For some, they felt like it was slower to go for the one-stop, but for other drivers, such as Blake McCandless, they told me depending on their track position, they may consider trying that strategy. It takes a fair bit of fuel saving because there were wild ranges of differences for how far drivers felt like they can go. Some felt they can only go about 40. Others felt they can go as far as 48. So keep that in mind when it comes to the strategy. And oh, by the way, fair bits of positivity amongst many of their competitors up front, James. The question is going to be, though, for some of them, how things play out. There's a lot of unknowns for how this could turn out tonight.
We could also get a yellow somewhere in the middle of this race, and it may entirely throw pit strategy out the window, but there's an added focus on that tonight, maybe more so than some of the other tracks that we go to, because of this circuit's propensity to produce fuel mileage races. What we find out, what we see, figure out over the course of 100 laps as Kyle Peddle gets the green flag from Marty the Flagman, and this third race of the 2021 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series from the virtual Auto Club Speedway is underway. Kyle Peddle, leader of the first lap, and leader by a good margin, clear by about maybe 3 or 4 car lengths over Cody Bias. But the Duval Creative Machines running well early on, and I think we're getting our answer very quickly as to whether or not this is going to be a one-groove race or a multi-groove race. Look at everybody spread out all over this racetrack within the second lap of this 100-lap race, Josh.
And you saw drivers already getting very loose down on that middle line. Everybody goes to the inside. Couple drivers electing to go up to the outside. Looks like the first one to really experiment with that is Alan Bowes, who is pretty much on the outside line there. Unfortunately, did not work out for him too well. 3 wide down the front straightaway. That is the 66 on the outside. The 8 in the middle of Colin Keister. Blake Reynolds to the outside there. And how about Anthony Burrows down to the inside? Trying to make something happen in the 62. He tries to go for 4th. Keister's going to use the 66 of Blake Reynolds up the racetrack. There's still 3 wide as they work down the back.
That's beautiful work from the native out of Frostburg, Maryland, in the winter 1 week ago at Homestead, Miami, to make the middle work for him and jump up into the top 5, just to the inside there of Alan Bowes and Blake Reynolds. As Reynolds will try and roll the momentum up top, everybody else sliding in line behind him. We're starting to see these drivers file into single and double file amongst the leaders, Evan Henry, but that's only until you get back to, well, about Keister and Bowes and Reynolds, and then they're back side by side once again.
Exactly. Now into turn number 1 again, you see everyone fan out. And I'll tell you what, there's no better way to watch this race than through the rearview mirror. So I think Kyle Peddle is pretty happy with what the show that he's chewing popcorn on right now. But Bias is not making it easy. He's still right there up on the rear bumper. And now it's a game of patience and also hoping that these guys towards the middle of the field continue to go 2-3 wide throughout the pack.
Peddle would love to be watching this through the rearview mirror as you get a good look here at Briar LaPratt out of Manchester, Tennessee, driving for Lockdown Racing, working his way towards the front. But for now, Peddle, I think, would love to watch this more out of the rearview mirror, like you said, Devin. Problem is that Cody Bias has managed to reel him in over the first few laps of competition. Makes me believe that Bias might have a stronger car under green flag conditions, and Femi Olot is right there with him, as is Blake Reynolds, as is Alan Bowes, the top 5, and even Colin Keister. And you can maybe make the argument for Anthony Burrows, too. Everybody there, single file on the line, and then a mess once you get to Justin Bolton and Colin Mountain and Jordy Lopez Jr. and company, Josh.
They're still 3 wide there with the 46 of Bowden in the middle. You're on board of the 66 of Blake Reynolds as he sits in P4. James, I think this is going to be a game of the long run. I think we're going to see a lot of change in the way these drivers run on the racetrack because of the long run. There's going to be a lot of different drivers who are fast on the short run, a lot of different drivers whose cars are going to come alive during that long run, and we just saw as they went through the corner the 14 of Bolton on the outside, as well as the 17 of Santiago Tires blazing by about 2-3 cars that were running on the inside line. Just looked like they stalled out going through turn 2, and the outside line was able to help them through there. So we go on board with Anthony Burrows in the 62.
Good look here at Anthony Burrows trying to get back into the Coke Series for Kligerman Sport, driver out of St. Peters, Missouri, working his way through the top 10, currently in the 7th spot, and just hanging off the rear deck lid of Colin Keister, trying to follow the tire tracks of last week's winner and try and make his way up into the top 5, because they have gone single file amongst your leaders. It is a brawl between Burrows and Bolton and everybody on back. Once you get to those two, everybody's double file up to Jake Nichols in 13th and Liam Brotherton in the 14th position.
And I've never been so happy to not be in a race and be in the broadcast booth instead, because these drivers have to be thinking that this is beyond chaotic at this point as they still fan out 3 wide through the corners. And once you bring yourself back, if you got float up off the corners, right, and you have that guy on your outside, it becomes so difficult if you don't have your spotter right there in your ear to know exactly how far can you float up, because you want to maximize that speed off of corner exit like we talked about, to go those now 3,100 feet down the front straightaway, 2,500 down the back straightaway, and carry that momentum. So, like right here, Strauss having to be so low on the track on exit, you cut so much speed off of your straightaway. Right there, there's potentially 2 positions lost if he can now find a way by these guys on corner exit.
Momentum doesn't matter as much in these cars as it does with, say, the trucks or the Cup Series cars or even the next-gen cars, because you've got more horsepower in these Class B stock cars than the NASCAR Xfinity Series. But they're wrecking across the front straightaway. That's Brian Schoenberg, who got spun down on the inside, and Schoenberg will head all the way down to the apron. I think he made the slightest contact with the wall, but we stay green flag racing. We'll get a good look here and see what happened to Schoenberg coming down the front stretch.
I think they're 4 wide here for a moment, James. Here comes the 52 up the racetrack. Gives the block to Schoenberg, and who did he make contact with there? Oh, he just gets a tap from behind, and around he goes on the front straightaway. Luckily, no yellow flag. We stay green, and they continue to run a pack as they work their way through. I believe that was Parker Retzlaff who made contact with him. Just the slightest bit of contact down the front straightaway sent Schoenberg off and into the grass.
That was a very close call for Blake McCandless as well. Schoenberg spun right across the nose of the Fast.Co Chevrolet Camaro. McCandless currently sitting in the 23rd position, but I think he got away without getting any damage. But I can only imagine on his Twitch stream that it might have been a little bit helter-skelter for a second. Here's a good look out of the driver out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And yeah, you can see him just sort of inhaling and exhaling, but hey, you've got to find a way to keep your nerves glued together during this race, Devin Hendry. And we don't necessarily talk about it so much, but it's so easy when you're racing in such close quarters to get unnerved, to get unrattled, very easy for your race to then unravel and become very troublesome very quickly if you can't keep cool.
And we still have 179 miles to go in this race. So if you cannot keep those nerves cool, especially when you're going 3 wide through these corners and down the front straightaway, that's where this is so demanding mentally, right? You have to have the ability to know where your car is going to evolve the best at. How do you adapt moving forward? And then, of course, you still have to battle those 3 wide melees, if you will, throughout this race. So exactly, the mentality part of both real-world racing and sim racing is such an underrated aspect of what these guys do for these big races.
Meanwhile, we're starting to see different lines develop on the racetrack. Kyle Peddle has immediately gone to the Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson side of things and has picked his line right up along the fence. And Cody Bias, for all the speed that he's had down on the white line, has not had the momentum to roll on corner exit to clear Kyle Peddle. So even though he's been able to go door to door with Peddle, and that Toyota Supra hasn't been able to complete the pass, and Peddle, at least for now, is still your race leader. Top 7 are all single file. First battle in this race. Might have to slide back a little bit further, but oh, contact on the front straightaway a little bit further back. And our first yellow flag proper of the evening, as I believe it was Seth DeMerchant and Jake Matheson who got into one another. And that looked like a case of drivers crossing lanes as they came off of corner number 4, Josh.
Matheson threw the block on Schoenberg, and now he ends up in the grass himself. Let's see exactly what happened here. Happened coming off of turn number 4. He made contact with the Logitech Gioltas esports machine. He made contact with the car on top of him. There's the contact. There goes Matheson down and into the grass. And it's so unfortunate. Matheson was definitely just the innocent bystander in this one here, James, and he gets a tap from the 57 who is on the outside of him. That was Seth DeMerchant. And it looks like, I believe, the 19 making contact. That was Liam Brotherton. Yes, it was. Who made contact with DeMerchant coming out of turn number 4. So unfortunate for everybody involved there. Didn't seem to be anybody's real faults here, James. Just the way Auto Club works. They're all trying to run their own lanes, and then just some lanes end up blending together, and there's the slightest bit of contact that sends DeMerchant up and down and into Jake Matheson.
This was Liam Brotherton who got into Seth DeMerchant, who got into Jake Matheson, and DeMerchant and Matheson clearly worse for wear out of that. Matheson losing all the track position, but as the drivers and the leaders come down pit road, let's go to Justin Prince.
Thank you very much, James. And I will say this with Malik Ray, despite getting spun around into the grass, he's actually feeling very positive. He focused straight up towards his adjustments for this run and essentially said that killed the vibe in his mark. Other than that, nice and calm for that mark. But several different teams were starting to want to get to the top line right before the caution flag. Some were really struggling with some of the grip and trying to find a good rhythm along the middle of the bottom lines. Pedal the first one off. Bose, Olot, Bias, along with Reynolds, the top 5 up the lane.
Most important piece of this yellow flag, I think, is that this is going to put us just inside of the fuel windows. So I believe, even Justin, you can correct me on this if my math is wrong, but I believe this puts us in the range where drivers, if they're smart, they might have to save a little bit, but they can make it to the scheduled distance on one more green flag pit stop. But would not be good if we had a green-white checker.
Yeah, you're exactly right on that, Mark. If anything, it'd be around a couple laps close if there's a GWC situation, if it was to have a late caution of some sort, or caution, I should say, from this point. But either way, James, it's still in the window where it's a one-stopper regardless of how you slice it. You could basically split the run in half if you wanted to at 43-43.
Could go 43-43. 86 laps left on the board, coming to 85 laps left in this race, as Kyle Peddle and company will get reorganized. Lights go off the pace car, so we'll get our first restart of the evening on lap 16 of 100 in what should be a very entertaining race. Biggest thing I saw, though, Devin, in the racing there, absolutely no question as to what kind of race we're going to get. For all the bottom feeding we saw at Homestead Miami, this is not going to be that. We are going to see these drivers all over this place all night long.
And what I found most intriguing was Kyle Peddle just ran away. I mean, no one could catch him, and then you had like 5 cars single file. So I'm curious, if we do go longer than 10 laps in this next green flag run, what changes? Can someone start making those passes inside the top 5? Because we just didn't see them. There was all the chaos behind them, but we did not see a pass inside that top 5 once they singled out.
Which then, maybe, Josh, does that increase the importance of trying to get positions on the first lap after a restart?
I think it can, but I also think we saw a healthy amount of drivers that once they started working different lanes were able to make those passes under the green flag. And we really have not seen a long run yet. That run was cut short at around lap 13. So I think once we see a couple more long runs come in, we're going to see a lot of different drivers start using different lines, start having their cars come to them, and they're going to be able to work their way back up through the field.
Kyle Peddle is still your control car for this restart. Then Alan Bose, Femi Olak, Cody Bias, and Blake Reynolds. And you make a solid point there. The man who struggled the most, the only man in the top 5 that's not restarting in the top 5 after taking the initial green there, Anthony Burrows, already back to 13. As Peddle gets back on the gas, and we go back to green flag racing at Auto Club Speedway. He'll go clear of the leaders by a bunch, but a good battle for second developing between Cody Bias, Femi Olak, and Alan Bose.
They continue to fight back through 1 and 2. You can see Alan Bowes trying to work the outside. How about Colin Keister? A huge run for the 8. He's going to dive into the middle. Contact with Femi Olot as he tries to get to that middle line. Olot's able to save it. Keister shot out of a cannon on the restart. He goes for second on Cody Bias.
Cody Bias gets third, maybe second now as Olot slips back a few spots. Look at Donovan Strauss working his way up high. First time we called his name near the front, but immediately he's made his charge, and he's got help in the form of Colin Bowden and the Space Station Gaming teammates running 6th and 9th at the moment, and immediately making their charge to the front, Devin.
And we had a major issue on that restart. Ryan Doucette got loose. He got into Casey Tucker, who was also loose. They had major contact with the wall. Blake McCandless was then punctured into the wall on the outside. All 3 of those cars with major damage after being right in the middle of the field.
A big moment for all 3 of them, and that all took place over in turn 2. I'm amazed we didn't have a yellow flag for it, but that certainly will put a figurative and literal dent in their hopes to finish well in this race, as McCandless now scored down in 36th, Doucette and Tucker in 38th and 39th, and McCandless is going to come down pit road.
That's going to be a race done for Blake McCandless, I'm willing to bet, and unfortunate for Doucette as well. He just got loose coming through 1 and 2, and one thing led to another. Contact with Seth DeMerch in the 57. That sent him up into Casey Tucker, sent him up into Blake McCandless as well. Battle for the lead. They go side by side, down the back straightaway. Give the lead back over to Alan Bowes. Kyle Peddle not going to fight that one. Looks like Peddle has a bit of a longer run car than Alan Bowes does, but last time we saw Kyle Peddle lose the lead, he was very quickly able to get back to the lead. They continue to stay side by side for third, however, as Blake Reynolds is going to just barely clear the 2 behind him, and now Keister and Bordeaux go side by side for 4th. They almost touch going into 1. Keister gets moved a little bit up the racetrack.
Bowes, Peddle, Reynolds and company in 1, 2, and 3. How about Donovan Strauss, though, to the inside, trying to get the spot from Colin Keister, and he might just work his way around Derek Bordeaux. Bordeaux's going to leave it as Michael Cozy Jr. out of Hagerstown, Maryland, trying to rebound after a struggling first 2 weeks in this Contender Series, but he's got a good run going now, currently in 14th, just to the inside at the back of this pack, working his way to the driver's side door of Justin Bolton.
And I'm watching the car directly behind these guys. Caden Honeycutt had a horrendous qualifying effort, started 38th, and now that red number 10 machine is in the 15th position, right behind Bolton, Lopez, and Cozy. This 10 car is on a mission right now. Watch this bright red car on the inside here. What a day it's been so far in the first 20 laps.
Here comes Caden Honeycutt to the outside of Michael Cozy Jr. We saw how strong he was, got the victory, or rather a good finish in Phoenix, was runner up there behind Parker Retzlaff, and backed it up with another really strong run at Homestead, Miami last week, as everybody trying to scramble for positions. There's a little bit of wheel movement out of the driver from Aledo, Texas, from Bobby Dale Earnhardt's Legacy Esports, currently in the middle of this bunch in 15th, but trying to work his way for a 3rd consecutive top 5.
Back through 1 and 2 they go, 2 by 2 for a majority of the field. A lot of the field has now gone up to the outside line. Pretty typical for the Xfinity Series when they're here in the real world. And we're seeing just a couple of drivers start to go down towards the bottom. Here's Donovan Strauss. He was your points winner when it came to the qualifying series. Already had some really good finishes when it comes to the Contender Series as well, James. And he's looking to continue that nature here. 3rd race for him, of course, this season. And Donovan Strauss now to P2.
Look at that, though. How interesting is that, Devin Henry, that we're already seeing drivers hit the middle of the racetrack? We've got some folks that are already getting off the bottom, and we're only, 6 laps removed from the beginning of this green flag run. Now on board with Justin Bolton, who's stuck up in the high line and will make contact with the fence and somehow hang on to it. Anthony Burrows nearly gets clipped, and somehow they haven't wrecked it yet. But honestly, Devin Henry, I'm not quite sure how, and I don't know if it'll totally be over yet, but tons of damage to Justin Bolton's machine.
The left rear quarter panel of Bolton's car was just oh so nearly tapped by the 10 of Caden Honeycutt, and I do not know how no one completely looped it going into turn number 3, because then there was even more contact. Another quarter panel got injured in that one, so watch that bright red 10 car kind of come up the back straightaway a little bit here. That little tap right there, and Bolton back up into the wall, then nearly hooks this car here. Nobody wrecks. We're all okay right now, staying green.
Somehow, some way, they're green, but lots of damage there. Meanwhile, for an update on Doucette and McCandless and company and that earlier incident on the screening flag run, let's bring in Justin Prince.
And a plethora of emotions from that, James, to keep in mind, because the worst driver in terms of damage from that sequence was Blake McCandless, to the point where he had several seconds of required damage, and now is the only driver a lap down. He was not happy as a result of that contact and is still struggling as a result with that race car. Needs some caution flags to get back in it. For some of the other drivers involved in that incident, Jake Matheson had mentioned, who's in 36th position, how his oil temps have been rising for his car, but feels like his car will be okay once that number 52 machine gets back in the draft. So there's a different spectrum of confidence levels after some of the trouble there. Oh, by the way, one of the drivers that is also charging to keep in mind, Donovan Strauss, they felt very confident. It's just been about, in terms of their spotting strategy, not putting Strauss into a bad spot early with it being too much of a risk and too much of a dynamic track. It's about having to play the patience game right now. They feel quick in that camp.
They feel very, very quick in that camp indeed. We'll see how it pans out for them as Alan Bowes continues to lead. A good look here on Michael Cozy Jr., but biggest thing I can see in the top five, Donovan Strauss is making a charge, Josh Lee. He has consistently been one of the fastest cars on track, and from 13th on the grid, he's driven his way into the top five, as has Derek Bordeaux, who started in 18th. So we're starting to see the comers rise to the front of this field.
And we talked about Donovan Strauss. We, of course, mentioned that he was top of the qualifying series. Okay, great. Does nothing for him going into the Contender series, but give him a little bit of momentum. Let's talk about his finishes in the Contender series. Less than stellar performance when it came to Phoenix Raceway. 34th he finished on the racetrack there. Then we fast forward to Homestead. We talked to him on the podium 1 week ago. He got a 3rd place finish. So he's looking to continue to gain and not have to rely on that drop for Phoenix. He does not want to have another race go worse than Phoenix to where he would have to use the drop for that. So, just looking for more great finishes is Donovan Strauss. We know he's capable of it. He just needs to get out there and do it in this Contender Series season. So we go on board with Colin Keister, fighting from 6th. Bordeaux and Petal now side by side, as Petal still running that Kyle Larson line. He has not moved from that outside line, still trying to make it work. But here comes Blake Reynolds, not a challenge.
Got a good look at this battle here from Colin Keister, who's just behind this bunch, currently running in the 6th position. You see all the action off of the top of his Chevrolet Camaro as they all try and fight for positions ahead of him, and Bowes and Strauss and Bordeaux and Petal and Reynolds try and stay in front of the number 8 Chevy Camaro. They continue to go door to door, do Bordeaux and Petal down the backstretch, but Bordeaux finally with the run to clear Petal, move him back to 4th. Bordeaux up to 3rd now as Reynolds continues to hold the 5th spot, and all these drivers otherwise just trying to find all sorts of different lanes of the racetrack, as Bowes is going to keep the lead, at least for the moment, ahead of Colin Keister. But this could get interesting very quickly, especially when you consider, you see him right there just on the edge of the screen, the damage machine of Casey Tucker. This is the gap line that you're looking at between Tucker and the drivers who are ready to put him one lap down.
And Tucker involved in that last restart, an issue there with a couple drivers who got wicked loose, including himself, and we will see exactly how they merge together. But with Bowes now up front and Strauss attempting to reel him back in, Petal did so well in that opening 10-lap stint and has fallen back to that 4th position, with Blake Reynolds continuing to reel in that rear bumper as well. How will these cars evolve? The track temperature isn't escalating to an immense amount. Only 76-degree track temperature, which is a couple degrees hotter. It is in the middle of the day. It's only going to get hotter, but who is going to be able to jump ahead of the weather, jump ahead of the tire wear in terms of setup? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing. You know where you are right now, but how do you need to adjust the car and evolve as this race goes on and on and on? 70 to go next time by.
Alan Bowes continuing to work the wheel. You saw him slide a little bit on corner exit. just a little tight there. Officially in Lima, Ohio, now residing down in the Atlanta area is Bose, but for the moment, the Dead Zone Racing driver keeping Donovan Strauss at bay. To see whether or not that maintains over the course of the next 5 or 10 laps or so. But for now, Bose in control, then Strauss, then Bordeaux, then Petal, and not really a proper battle until you get to Caden Honeycutt, Femi Olat, and Cody Bias for 9th, 10th, and 11th.
And everybody really continuing to stay close to each other. Of course, at the front, they've spaced out a little bit, but the biggest interval I'm seeing is right around 4.5 tenths. You go a little bit back, 4.5 tenths between Keister and Nichols. You go a little bit further, about a tenth, 2 tenths, another tenth, less than a tenth. So we have a lot of drivers that are still staying close to each other. They're not spreading out too much. So we have a side-by-side battle for the lead. Donovan Strauss really wants it. He's going to take it just for the moment. But here's the drag race down the very long curved front straightaway here at Auto Club. And Bose got the best run off turn 4, able to keep the best speed. Here comes Strauss right back to the bottom in 1.
This is a tricky thing to read because what you're watching for really is where these cars on corner exit. You see Strauss there just come on, and he's just along the quarter panel of Alan Bose. That's, I would say, virtually the gap between the leader and second at this time, because whoever runs that high line that Bose is running is going to carry momentum on corner exit, so they're naturally going to blast down the straightaway, but Strauss is going to gain all the time on the inside of the racetrack running through the middle of the corner. The one spot where they equal out is usually right at corner exit, so if you want to get a sense of who's running well and who's just ahead of this field and in the race lead, that's the point that you need to be watching where those two cars are. Of course, there's also the matter of Derek Bordeaux, who's trying to make the charge out of Quebec and maybe, just maybe, give Donovan Strauss a little bit of trouble here because he's been gaining on the Space Station Gaming driver over the course of the past 5 laps.
And that Dead Zone 04 continues to reel in a little bit more, and continues to close the gap, and now up on the rear bumper of Strauss. And he saw exactly what worked and what did not work for Donovan Strauss, so he might be able to exploit some of the difficulties that 51 car is having. Attempting to hug that bottom seam, not all the way down to the white line. You scrub a little bit of speed down there, but Strauss just cannot get to the rear bumper and make a move on Bose. So Derek Bordeaux is watching this. He's staying high as well. I'm curious if he's going to try to use a little bit of that draft down the straightaway and just not even worry about Strauss. He's using a completely different line than Bordeaux. Do you just let Strauss do whatever he wants, and then eventually you're going to get to that left rear quarter panel?
This is such an interesting case study in the lines that you can use here at Auto Club because I'm watching these leaders. They're all running 3 different lines. We see Bose running right up on the fence, Bordeaux sort of in the middle, Strauss down on the bottom, and even amongst that last lap, Bose and Bordeaux flipped lines in different corners. In 1 and 2, it was Bose that was in the middle, and it was Bordeaux up top, and then they flipped. Now we go into 1 and 2, and you see that Bose is going to hang right up on the fence, as will Derek Bordeaux, and Strauss continues to run that bottom line. So really interesting stuff to watch. If you're a crew chief, if you're a strategist, if you're someone who loves the idea of comers and goers and stock car racing, this race is going to be a feast for you, Josh Lee, because you're going to see all of that and then some as Donovan Strauss completely tries to chop block and take the air off of the nose of Derek Bordeaux and manages to keep him in third, at least for the time being.
And right now, Dylan Duval, who is on the box for Derek Bordeaux, basically telling him that he's flying, just be smart about it, don't do anything stupid like put yourself in the wall, but he's continuing to run that outside line. Let's see the run that he gets down the back straightaway and if it's going to help him. Doesn't look like it does. Alan Bowe is going to stall out a little bit off the corner as well. Donovan Strauss going to barely close in that gap. And as we continue to work through this run, tires are going to start to wear. We've been about 20 laps since the start of this run. So now we're going to have to start talking about how the tires are wearing in. As here comes Strauss, barely not able to clear him, and he is going to fall right back into the clutches of Alan Bose. The 21 doing an amazing job at holding the lead at the moment.
For more on the strategy here and more on these drivers and what they're thinking about doing as they change lanes and try and manage their equipment over the course of this green flag run, let's go down to pit road and to Justin Prince.
When it comes to that lane management you're referring to, it was talked about by Kyle Petal just moments ago that They're trying to be careful on the lane choice because they don't want to end up burning up their tires. It's to the point where they're trying to play around with the lines, try and test things out to compare with Blake Reynolds just up the road. As well, keep in mind with the driver just in front of them as well and Derek Bordeaux, that machine is currently being told essentially to be smart and don't put them into the wall. In other words, they're trying to play very carefully in their choices to make sure they don't burn up their equipment, especially with the fall-off being 1.5 plus seconds already throughout much of the field, James.
Lots of stuff to process. This is not an easy race if you're atop a pit box, Josh Lee. That much I know. I wouldn't want to try and have to do their work, and I don't envy any of these folks. But again, you look at all these drivers in this field, they all have incredible support teams. That's part of why they're here competing in the Contender Series. It's tough to make it to this level of sim racing all by yourself. So these drivers have plenty of folks behind them who are helping to calculate the numbers, crunch all the math out, and trying to figure out where they need to run, when they need to pit, and how they need to balance their car over the course of these next 60 laps to get them across the line and to the checkered flag as quickly as possible.
There's a lot of those people on the box that are also drivers and competitors in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. So they have that direct experience to help bring either their teammates or their friends up and into the Coca-Cola iRacing Series themselves. They're still going back and forth here in the battle for the lead. We saw the lap time comparison for Blake Reynolds last time by, a little bit faster than the leaders. We'll see if that continues on as they've lost somewhat of about a second and a half on the timing sheet with the tires continuing to wear. Strauss back to the bottom. They're side by side down the front straightaway. You can see the side of the 51 as they drag race down the long back straightaway here at Auto Club. Going for a bit of a side draft is Donovan Strauss. The dive into 3 is the 51 going to be able to complete the pass. They stay relatively even. Bose outside, Strauss inside. They stay side by side. Can Strauss get the spot? Yes, he can. Here comes Alan Bose with a crossover. Goes all the way down to the grass. Strauss is going to make Bose work for it, and Bose is going to be able to clear him before they even get back to turn 1.
Again, exit on the high line versus the low line and the difference between the two and what that can do for you. You want that done in textbook form. There's your answer. That's how you do it. Donovan Strauss will try and slide up ahead of Alan Bose and side draft him, but Bose will maintain the race lead for the moment. Here's a good look off of the roof of the driver out of Marietta George's car. He will duck down to the bottom, go all the way to the white line, and try and slide up ahead of Alan Bose once again, but he's a little bit further off the bottom than he was a lap ago. Tries to shuffle his line just a bit. Maybe keep Alan Bose at bay, but Bose still gets that great run up top to them, and it's so hard to fight that, especially down the front straightaway where you've got such a launching pad of a front straightaway to work with.
And it was so interesting watching Strauss work the wheel in 3 and 4. He almost kept that tape straight up and down, and I was thinking maybe he has a massive offset on the steering, and he does not. So he's really working that car in the center of the corner to make sure that it stays straight to get this momentum like he's getting down this back straightaway. Again goes door to door with Bose, and these two still hold their gap over Reynolds and Bordeaux right behind them, who are also side by side. Still just not jumping back up. I thought that he would slide job these guys. Finally gets that nose up in front of him. This time, will another crossover come from Bose? He does not. He stays tucked behind. This time, the 51 leads, and he is all by himself.
And there is the pass complete. Donovan Strauss to the race lead for Space Station Gaming on lap number 43 of 100. The first time he's been out in front, and Alan Bose is sideways already behind him. Makes me wonder, Josh Lee, if he might be losing the tires on his Chevy Camaro, and if he might be vulnerable to a charge from a Blake Reynolds or a Derek Bordeaux, maybe even a Colin Keister, depending on how these next 15 laps or so pan out.
Last time by, 10th and a half slower was Alan Bose, then Donovan Strauss. You look back a little bit further, Blake Reynolds was about 0.2 faster than Alan Bose. Derek Bordeaux, an exact even lap time from Alan Bose. So we're starting to see the difference in setup, the difference in tire wear for the drivers up here in the top 5 and throughout the field. Garrett Lowe just made a pass on Colin Bowden to move himself just a little bit further up the racetrack into P10. Goes the 6 of Garrett Lowe. Brandon McKissick making a move on Zach Nichols. There's still a couple of side-by-side battles further back. Look at the run from Bowden. Gives a shot to the 6 as they race down the back straightaway.
Strauss clear. Bo's trying to hang on to second for the moment. A little bit further back. Good battle there. But all of a sudden, here comes Blake Reynolds now working the rear bumper of Alan Bo's Chevy Camaro. It's Chevy versus Toyota down the front stretch as we close in on the halfway point of this third race of 7 in this eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series already. Now here goes Reynolds up top. Bose will try the bottom and they'll switch lanes, or at least Bose will switch lanes compared to what he was running against Donovan Strauss just a few laps ago. Remember, Strauss was down on the bottom and made that pass, so Bose is going to go to the inside and try and keep Reynolds behind him.
And Reynolds has consistently been the fastest of this 4-car group as he goes to the inside of Bose, and the Texan in that number 66 machine tries to slide to the second position. How much tire is he using? How much of that right front is beginning to wear out on the number 66? Clears himself for second and will now begin the hunt for Donovan Strauss. Strauss is running away, but Reynolds has consistently been the fastest car in this front pack. Does he still have enough left in that Supra to hunt down Donovan Strauss?
At least before we get to green flag pit stops, which should be coming in the next 10 laps or so. That's the biggest thing that we need to pay attention to. These drivers, remember, got that yellow flag almost at a perfect time, right to where it should be a one-stop race by everybody's window. So it removed some of the strategy that was present when we took the green flag. The question is, how do they handle that cycle, and when do they come in around that window in order to try and get the jump on everybody else? Somebody's going to try and short pit this, somebody's going to late pit it and drive back through the field with everyone. We'll just have to wait and see how it pans out as we go on board with Kyle Pettel, who's put together a nice run. Started on pole, currently in 8th, back towards the back half of the top 10. But this is the best run he's had so far in this Contender Series by a long, long margin. And Josh Lee, I have to believe that if he can hang on for another 53 laps or so, he'd take this top 10 pretty quickly.
Definitely, and a lot of the drivers right now in the top 10 would take these finishes. Right now, the only driver who has really been consistent over the last 2 rounds that is up here at the front is Colin Keister. Everybody else still looking for some good finishes as we go on board with Taylor Hurst, the famous lean going into the corner, and he stays leaned down the straightaway as well. As take a look at the 10 of Caden Honeycutt up the middle. What a move for him. It is a hornet's nest right now all around this group as they just went 3 wide. They continue to go 2 wide as Caden Honeycutt trying to move his way up the leaderboard as Jordy Lopez Jr., I believe, just went off pace. Never mind, that is the 98 that just went off pace and is going to go 1 lap down. That's Ashton Crowder.
As they continue to fight, developing story from pit road. Justin Prince, what do you got for us?
You mentioned that 98. The stop they just made was not a scheduled one, guys, because they had a pedal issue just appear for them where the clutch was hanging for Ashton Crowder. He ended up fixing it within 5 seconds during the pit stop sequence, but now he's in a very tough situation, James, where he's outside the projected fuel window by at least a few laps. They essentially had the approach, it's going to take a heroic effort to fix the pedal. They fixed the pedal, and now it's the matter of how they recover.
The pedal was fixed, but Crowder now scored in 36. He's the first car 1 lap down in this race. And just if you're trying to keep track of things as we look at Femi Olot, who's in 7th, the next car up the racetrack would be Ryan Doucette, and Doucette would be the free pass car if the leaders can get to him. Problem is that Strauss probably has somewhere in the ballpark of maybe another 10 to 15 seconds before he gets to Ryan Doucette. So that's something that Crowder, I think, is going to have to factor in over the course of these next few laps or so. And we may not see a car go a lap down before these drivers come down pit road, or at least the leaders come down pit road for what should be the 1 round of green flag pit stops we'll have tonight. So plenty of factors beginning to weigh in as we approach halfway, and as we do hit lap number 50, we'll hit the halfway stripe this time by cross flags, and that gives us the opportunity to bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. And a friendly reminder that you get 50% off new signups and 25% off of renewals when you sign up today at iRacing.com/Black Friday. Mathematically speaking, it's the best time of the year to get your membership renewed or start your new membership and begin to work your way towards the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series. Donovan Strauss leads for Space Station Gaming with 50 laps up on the board. Blake Reynolds currently holds second. Alan Bowes third. Colin Keister in the fourth spot. And Jake Nichols completes the top five. Femi Olot holds sixth at this moment. Seventh belongs to Derek Bordeaux. Kyle Peddle now eighth after starting on pole. Cody Bias runs in ninth, and 10th. Josh Lee belongs to Garrett Lowe.
That 11th spot going to belong to Colin Bowden. Blade Witt going to be in the 12th spot. Dylan Alton 13th. Liam Brotherton 14th. Brian Mercurio going to round out the top 15 with Caden Honeycutt 16th. Taylor Hurst in 17th. And then it's a hornet's nest back from there. They were just 3 wide as Michael Cozy Jr. currently holds 18th. Brandon McKissick holds 19th. And Santiago Tirez holds 20th.
Malik Ray started 36th. He's gunning for that 20th position, but now sits in 21st. Zach Nichols behind him in 22nd. Nicholas Shelton in P23, followed by Derek Justice and Jordy Lopez to round out the top 25. Brad Davies in 26th. Christian Pedersen in 27th. Briar LaPrade, Brian Schoenberg, and Daniel Eberhardt round out the top 30.
Anthony Burrows currently in the 31st spot. 32nd belongs to Parker Retzlaff. Jake Matheson in 33rd, and Seth DeMerchant in 34th. Ryan Doucette holds the 35th position. 36 belongs to Ashton Crowder. Justin Bolton has scored in 37th. 38th is Casey Tucker. And Blake McCandless on pit road holds the 39th and final position in this third race of 7 of the 2021 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series. That concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. And with over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser-scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. Remember, visit iRacing.com/Black Friday to get 25% off of renewals and 50% off of new account sign-ups today. So Donovan Strauss in control of all of this and out front by nearly half a second over Blake Reynolds. Colin Keister third. Good battle though for fifth. Let's go there. Jake Nichols, Femi Olot door to door, and it's Ford versus Toyota for the last spot in the top 5 at this moment.
Continuing to fight with Femi Olot on the bottom. Jake Nichols peeking on the outside, and Femi Olot barely going to be able to get that spot covered off. Now that's going to open the door to the inside. For Ashton Crowder, who's going to go right on by. He's not going to worry about this fight, but he will be just slightly in the way for the moment. But you can see those fresh tires on the 98 going to come in handy. And he'll get away from that battle pretty quickly. But Femi Olot able to also get away from that battle pretty quickly as now Ashton Crowder tries to work his way around the driver on the outside of him. Now Cody Bias fighting with Garrett Lowe. Bias losing a good bit of spots from where he initially started. He started P4, was running up in the top 5 for the beginning of this run, has now fallen a bit down, but opposite for Garrett Lowe as he is up 22 spots from where he initially started tonight.
Garrett Lowe continuing to make a charge through this field. Really nice work for Lowe and really solid stuff for his machine as he now runs inside the top 10 for the first time this evening. Meanwhile, how about Blake Reynolds and Colin Keister continue to fight at it? And you see a good battle a little bit further back too as they continue to work their way towards the checkered flag here at Auto Club. Here's the look between Reynolds and Keister. Just looking off the deck there, you see Olot, you see Nichols. You've got them 3 wide a little bit further back just where we were with Bordeaux and Bowden and Witt and company. But now they've started to string out just a bit, Devin Henry. This is the most spread out we've seen this field, but it's also right before pit stops, waiting to see whether or not these drivers are going to try and come down pit road now or whether or not they're going to stretch it. But you have the opportunity potentially now to make it home to the end if you stop and get that done and dusted now.
And with just 89 miles left in this virtual race, you have to start considering, what do I need to do to make this car better? Is it going to be something where you adjust the air pressures and try to get yourself some extra time when you get out of the pits? Even something as small as that can make the difference in a race where we've only seen 1 caution so far. Last week we went wire to wire, green flag racing. So you have to be in the mindset that this race might go green to the end. What do you have to do to make sure that your car can get the maximum amount of points? I look at a guy like Dylan Alt. He's a guy who came into this race who did not need a perfect day. 27 points above the elimination line, 5th in points. But then he comes into the race and he qualifies all the way back in the 37th position. Well, they decide to work their way up. They now sit P13, making a bad day something where you can continue to grow your gap between yourself and the elimination line. Hey, that's the goal every single week, right?
work your way above that 20th spot. That's the biggest key of all, as Olot continues to hang on to 4th and is trying to scamper away from what is a really good battle now between Bose and Nichols. But now here come pit stops, and Justin Prince will let you get on it as the first of the leaders come in for service on lap 59.
One of the main things Colin Keister had mentioned prior to his pit stop, he felt like he wished he was a little bit faster to be able to catch up to them. As odd as that sounds, he wants to try and save the tires a little bit better on this next run to try and have a shot towards the race victory. Also peeling on in Blade Wit, they've been dealing with damage from earlier on in the race. They had been initially planning a different strategy with the caution flags. That has changed. They have now rolled their way to the box. Several more drivers coming into the pit lane. Some more are dealing with abysmal races. Parker Wetswept with a very quiet race has been dealing with right front damage the entire run. He's off and away and is still without the range of the draft of most of these cars coming off. Donovan Strauss, meanwhile, is coming on in, and he has been very happy, to say the very least. Drive off has been perfect, they said. Better than testing, in fact. Once they got clean air, it's to where the car is tight, but the drive off is so good, they feel, that it has not mattered. Good speed so far in that camp for the 51.
Very good speed indeed. This looks like a Donovan Strauss who has learned from everything that he went through in the Contender Series a year ago. And remember last week when we talked to him post-race in his podium interview, he was so worried about having the bad luck hit him once again, especially after the way his Phoenix race panned out, where he had speed and then got caught up in a late wreck and ended up in trouble. Looks like this might be a properly fast Donovan Strauss this time around. More cars, though, coming down pit road. Justin Prince, let's go back to you for the second wave of pit stops.
More stops indeed, and one of the drivers that's feeling a little bit of the heat, literally, is Blake Reynolds, as he forgot to turn on his fan before taking the green flag. It's been very calm, though, in the 66 camp. They've been trying to let things come towards them, it seems, throughout the entire night so far. More drivers in the pit lane include Briar LaPrat as well, who has been struggling with his right front tire really tight in traffic, the 35, right from the drop of the green flag in the last run. That team has been essentially saying it's Homestead all over again for LaPrat. Novak feels if he can save more tires, Briar LaPrat, he might be able to run better to close out this race. They're off and away as Anthony Burrows comes on in. Anthony Burrows, one of the last drivers to come in this time, has been dealing with right rear quarter panel damage, not affecting the handling, James, but it has affected the speed, they had said, after checking the damage.
Everybody done, dusted with pit stops, and the only man who's just coming in for service is Anthony Burrows. He's the last one to complete a green flag pit stop, along with Ashton Crowder, who came in a few laps ago to fix that pedal issue and decided to turn that into a strategy play. So, if we go green flag racing, Crowder, I don't think can make it all the way to the end, but if we manage to get a yellow flag somewhere within, call it about the next 30 laps or so, and Crowder will have the opportunity to pick from the race lead. And this now throws a neat little wrinkle into things, Josh Lee, because Crowder could benefit from that whole pedal situation in the end if things fall in his favor.
If he gets a caution, which we saw multiple drivers bank on a caution in Homestead, and look at how that turned out. We went caution free all the way to the end. We already saw one caution tonight. Field spread out now. And the fact that we didn't see a caution for a single car incident a little bit earlier on tonight, I would not want to be in the camp that is betting on a caution. We might get one, but especially with the worn tires that Ashton Crowder is seeing right now, here comes the train of Strauss, Keister, Lowe, Reynolds, Olot, and more, all to catch him as they work their way through 3 and 4.
The difference in lap times between Crowder and Strauss and Keister and all the leaders who just came down pit road is about a second. At this point, it was 9 tenths officially last time by. But that difference is going to fade just a little bit as the tires get worn in on the race leaders. And the fall off is going to be greater for them than it will be for Crowder, who's already starting to hit the midpoint of his green flag run. So yes, Strauss and Keister should eventually catch Crowder, but it might not necessarily be immediate. The question will be, what do the lap times look like when they do run down the Ford Mustang that Crowder has currently got in P1, and what kind of difference will exist then? Will it still be almost a second, or will it have shaved down and come down to maybe 7 tenths of a second, 5 tenths of a second, 3 tenths of a second as you look at Crowder there?
And that, I don't think any of that matters for Crowder's camp, who it sounds like he literally just threw a water ball up there. Okay, he's got it back. He's good. Say hi. Oh, there it goes. Okay, never mind. He wants to throw that out the window right now and get a caution, but I don't even think that it would be forward to be in the lead or have good track position. He already knows he needs a caution just to survive. If he goes back down and pits right now, he's back a lap down. He came into this race 28 points below the elimination line, and now if he were to slide back to where he was, is outside the top 35. If he goes back to 10th on this cycle and then the caution flies, that is a win for this team, because they would all still come down pit road. Guys, there are still multiple sets of tires on pit road for all of these drivers. Strauss is going to catch up right here, blow the doors off of Crowder, new leader the 51, but this is not the play for Crowder. He just wants a caution to come sometime before he runs out of fuel, so he will not only be guaranteed on the lead lap, but then he might be mid-pack once everyone comes down and gets tires under caution. That's the play here for Crowder.
Any sort of yellow flag will be appreciated for Crowder, who started 34th. But remember, 2 years ago in the Coke Series, he won here at our little club Speedway. So he has found success in the highest levels of stock car sim racing, and certainly can be a threat, especially if he gets the chance to pit and get back on cycle with everyone else. Here's a look at Cody Bias, who's currently in the 11th position. A few cars battling ahead of him, but a pretty good group battling behind him, too. Liam Brotherton, Kyle Petto, Colin Bowden, Derek Bordeaux, and Brian Mercurio, some of the names who are all single file just behind Bias in a Chevy Camaro.
And they'll go back fighting into turn number 1. What a race for Donovan Strauss. What a race for Colin Keister. They sit top 2 on board with the 12th place driver, the 19 of Liam Brotherton. He's got Kyle Petto taking a peek to his inside, and truth be told, that number 54, since the drop of the green flag, James, has definitely not been the best driver on the racetrack through the middle portion of this race. Beginning of the race, he had one of the fastest cars, and he could lead for a good bit of time. Now we haven't seen him really peeking up into the top 5 since. So we'll see if in these last 34, 33 now, some odd laps are going to help Kyle Petto, or if he's going to be continuing to stay a little bit more towards the mid-pack as he runs P13.
Also note, near Kyle Petto in the running order, but someone we've not talked about too much tonight, but has made a very nice charge as you look at the numbers. Caden Honeycutt started in 38, already up to the 10th position, and after the strong runs he's had early in the going in this Contender Series, you're looking at favorites for the championship. Look at this driver right here, who again has got real world experience. He was running around in the late model stock championship for the Cars Tour just this past year, but Honeycutt also has speed in the sim as well, and a few more runs like this, and it won't be an immediate lock in the Coast Series competition for next year, but he's already well on his way towards making the case and being one of the first drivers to be able to rest easy and breathe in maybe the last race or two.
Exactly, and that's all that you want to do, right? Because now that we're almost at the halfway point of the 7-race season, you just need to be racking up those good runs. Caden Honeycutt came into tonight 3rd in points, 32 points above the cut line, but you look at this battle right here, Reynolds, Olot, Lowe, Bose, and I look specifically at Garrett Lowe, who started this race in 31st position. The pit cycle, he started around the 10th position. Now he's in the 4th spot. So a great run here for Garrett Lowe, someone who was 16 points above the cut line coming into tonight. Look at the calm demeanor on his face on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. He looks comfortable in the car, and he certainly has a lot of speed right now inside the top 5.
He's just been very calm, cool, collected. Garrett Lowe's got a runner-up finish here, though. That race that Ashton Crowder won last year in the Coach Series, Garrett Lowe was runner-up in it. So Lowe, too, also knows how to find speed. And in that sense, maybe not a huge shock that he is one of the hardest chargers in this race. I believe he and Crowder, at least for the moment, are tied for that honor. But remember, Crowder on the alternate pit cycle compared to the race leaders, so he will likely drop a few more spots, and that will leave Lowe as the outright hardest charger in this field. With 70 laps complete, now working lap 71 of 100. So 30 to go here at Auto Club. Donovan Strauss still out in front by 0.7 of a second over Colin Keister. And then you have this battle for 3rd, which has gotten really tight. Garrett Lowe's a part of it, as is Blake Reynolds, as is Femi Olot. And Olot in particular, I think, will not complain about this. He's been a very quiet, solid runner. I haven't said his name much, but the driver out of Massachusetts up in 8th in the point standings coming into this evening. And same sort of story here. Maybe not quite as spectacular as, say, a Honeycutt or a Red Slap in these first few races, but again, consistency is what matters the most in this Contender series, and he and Honeycutt may be making the best cases for sustained consistency early on in this campaign.
Femi Olot got 7th at Phoenix, 18th at Homestead, so that's his current drop week, which is also giving him a little bit of help. But great start to the season for Femi Olot, and great to see, of course, wanting to get back to the top step of eNASCAR, and it always seems to be a little bit of a hit to the confidence when you get relegated out of the Coke Series, but Femi Olot definitely not taking any of that. He is running in 3rd right now. A great run for Femi Olot to continue this campaign. On board now with Blade Witt, looking off the back of that number 7 machine. Here comes Caden Honeycutt. He was the driver who came alive late in the race in Phoenix. We got a really good finish there. Got another equally good finish as well at Homestead. Looking to continue the stretch of consistent finishes is the short track driver in the 10.
Honeycutt there in the 9th position. He too, one of the hardest chargers in this field. So a few drivers just trying to make their way up towards the front after struggling in qualifying. Cody Bias has been near the front pretty much the whole evening, and here he goes underneath Honeycutt to try and take over that 9th position outright. Might drag Kyle Peddle back into this too, who slipped a little bit after that pit stop, but it looks like that car maybe comes to life about 5 to 10 laps into a run. I've seen him be a little bit slower than some of these other drivers around him on the beginnings of green flag runs, but now that we've got 15 laps on the tires for most everybody, Devin Henry, looks like Peddle's car is starting to come to life. And now here he comes to the inside of Honeycutt as Bias will try and box him in.
And we saw that car work miraculously well to open up this race and slid back, slid back, slid back. Now finally seems to get that car back under him and getting back off to the races. So still work to be done, though. He still has a lot of spots to make up, but he wants to get back into contention to win this race. Still just fighting around that top 10 position. Gonna need a little something to get himself back up front there, but you look back at this position for 20th right now. Justice is back here, Cozy, Shelton, Tierez, and this Hornet's Nest is absolutely miraculous as they continue to swap spots back and forth. And these are some guys who need points. Derek Justice came into tonight 9 points below the cut line. You do not want to be battling for 20th. You want to be battling for 10th. Tierez came in 2 points above the cut line. Again, not where you want to be right now, and potentially a dangerous spot and somewhere where you are not going to be gaining much points once the checkered flag flies.
Cozy in particular, I think, as a driver we need to watch at that battle as Omelot continues to keep working. But one of the storylines we've not had the chance to touch on much over the course of these first few races is the general lack of speed from Logitech G Altus Esports. They've got 4 drivers in this series. Of them, the highest driver in the point standings as it stands, Jordy Lopez, only in 27th. He's 8 points back. For a team that's got deep resources and a roster that includes Seth the Merchant, Christian Peterson, and Michael Cozy Jr. in addition to Lopez, you would have figured that they would have been able to come out of the box and really strut their stuff. But Josh Lee, it's just not been easy pickings, and you can start to see it. It almost looks as if the wear and tear of this Contender series and just the general lack of pace may be starting to get to Cozy. He looks a little bit more frustrated behind the wheel tonight than he has in weeks past.
Yeah, and I think of the qualifying series when I think about Logitech G Altus Esports. You remember how many drivers they had in the qualifying series as well? Well, they had 4 move into the Contender series that are racing here tonight. And you think back to the qualifying series as well, the massive amount of teamwork that we always saw from Altus. I think of Talladega right off the top of my mind, where they had all their drivers lined up on the inside line, barely moving from the top couple of spots for most of the race, both in Split 1 and in Split 2. Just like you mentioned, general lack of pace, and I'm wondering where in the line is the mistake. Is it something with the setups? They're not able to find that secret to get the speed out of the cars. Is it just maybe lack of strategy or strategy uniqueness from other drivers where they just kind of get stuck back in the pack and can't really move up? Is it the drivers not really meshing well with the car and the track combos? It just becomes an ever-long line of questions that we can continue to ask, but as we ask the questions, Logitech G Altus Esports continues to run through the midfield and onto the back of the pack as well.
big struggles across the board as Donovan Strauss is not struggling all that much. He's stretched it out to a 1.1 second lead over Femi Olot, who's now jumped up to second ahead of Blake Reynolds. But not a huge surprise. I think I want to touch on Reynolds for just a moment here because we know he's a noted lover of big motor, small blade combos, enjoys running those in stock cars more than anyone else, and has plenty of propensity. You see him in leagues on Saturday nights, Sunday nights here in the iRacing community getting the job done. So I would say I'm not surprised to see Reynolds coming to his own here tonight, and maybe this track more so than any of the others might suit his strengths, his ability to manage tires and manage the right rear over the course of a long green flag run. A good run for Blake Reynolds, who likewise has put off a strong start in this Contender Series, currently sitting 7th in the point standings. I mean, tonight that stands to go up if he can hold on to this spot to the end of the race.
Exactly. We've seen the strategy work out for Reynolds so far. They have executed their race to perfection thus far, able to keep themselves in a position to potentially win this race. Started 6th, has just kind of hung on to the very front of this field. And same thing for Femi Olot, who has went a little bit further back in the pack, but he started P2. Now he's back here in P2 again.
Go back down to Justin Prince for some updates on our leaders.
And the funny thing is, when it comes to Femi Olot, guys, was he was excited over the radio about qualifying in second, and his crew for tonight, Graham Bowen, Steven Wilson, essentially told him with some negative reinforcement, don't get excited until you finish in second. Now he's worked his way back up there for tonight's action in the closing stages of this race, and in that respective camp, they feel like they've got a lot of good pace, especially to run specific lines around the racetrack. A lot of confidence in that camp right now in second position. Now, when it comes, meanwhile, to Colin Keister, their goal right now is to just finish inside the top 5 currently, with some of the pace struggles currently after losing so much ground in the first couple laps to Donovan Strauss after the pit window. Right now, the goal again is simple. Finish top 5, get solid points in the Keister camp.
Keister looking to continue the momentum that he built up with his victory at Homestead, Miami last week. A few events to tell you about in the world of iRacing coming up. Tomorrow, we've got the finale of the Rallycross World Championship presented by Yokohama from Charlotte. Will crown champions at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, November 16th. You can find that on the iRacing Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels. Then Thursday, the last race of the season for the inaugural campaign, the Force Dynamics LR iRacing Grand Prix World Championship from the Hungaroring. We'll head to Hungary to crown a champion. That broadcast will begin at 2 p.m. Eastern on iRacing's Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels before we're back with coverage in 2 weeks' time for the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series from Nashville Super Speedway. That, too, you'll see on the iRacing Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels. And the broadcast will start at 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday night, November 30th. Inside at 20 laps to go, here's a look out of the man from Cypress, Texas. Blake Reynolds continuing to just sort of chug around the racetrack as it stands. Garrett Lowe, Alan Bowes also to go battle just behind this bunch, but nobody really with a lot of speed for Donovan Strauss just yet. Looking at the lap times over the course of the last handful of circuits or so, everybody's been pretty even. 42.3, 42.2, 42.3. They've sort of been trading time back and forth, and Strauss maybe a hair slower. He was a 10th off second and third that last time by, but he's still got a second's worth of race lead to work with.
Fastest driver out of the top 5, the 18 of Femi Olot. I'm very pleasantly surprised by the way the 18 is running here as we take a look at a side-by-side moment. You're on board with Brian Mercurio. Colin Bowden going to try and power around the outside line. Mercurio's not going to give up as they still go side-by-side through 3. Mercurio sends it in deep, and he's able to get that spot away. Will Bowden have anything to say about it? Doesn't look like he is going to. He'll stay right behind the 41 of Mercurio, but back to Femi Olot. Very pleasantly surprised by the way he is running here in the number 18. You're taking a look at him off the top of Blake Reynolds in the 66. Chris Overland quoted on Twitter as saying, "Bruh, Femi finna do it to him." Let's see if he's right. He's got 16 to go to try and hold on to P2.
He's also got 16 to go to try and run down Donovan Strauss and take the race win from the most dominant driver in the eNASCAR Road to Pro in 2021. Strauss has picked up pretty much right where he left off in the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series, but as it stands, it is still Strauss's race to lose and Olot and Reynolds to give chase. Last time by, though, Olot was faster than Strauss by 1/10 of a second, so this lead is starting to come down just a little bit. Still 9/10 of a second, so Strauss has some breathing room, but this sustained over the course of a 10-lap run would see Olot and Reynolds right there on the rear bumper of Strauss, just outside of 5 laps to go.
And Olot running that paint scheme that is oh so familiar with Bobby Labonte. And right now, Olot running in second. Labonte finished second in the second ever race at Auto Club Speedway, that being the IROC race back in 1997, only a couple hours after the inaugural race, which was the Winston West Series. But even Labonte in that race, he actually led 25 laps. Olot has not been able to break through, but he continues to be one of, if not the fastest car on track every time by. Both 14 laps to go, having to make up nearly a full 1 second lead. I'm really intrigued how everyone has migrated back to the bottom. I felt like, especially late in a run, that might actually kind of hurt your speed. You're going to scuff some speed on the inside, but that's where everyone has seemed to migrate it. And I'd be interested if anyone has anything for that middle line, that bottom seam. Is there any speed left there, or is it going to be a bottom-hungry game?
Could be a bottom 100 game. Let's watch lap times as they come across the strike. Coming to 13 laps to go. Strauss runs a 42.3. Femi a 42.3. Reynolds a 42.3. 75 to a 61 to a 29. So it's hundredths now that Olot and Reynolds are faster than Strauss. Not the tenths, but again, continuing to hold at about 9/10 of a second between Strauss and Olot as they continue to battle for the race win. Everybody else, though, behind them pretty much in line, and maybe intriguingly, everybody else running the top line, they've all found their way towards the fence a little bit further back in the field. Less separation and less variation in these lines across the racetrack now than we had earlier on in this race.
And we go on board a little bit further back in the pack with Derek Bordeaux, who did tap the wall a little bit earlier on today. Has been fine since. He's in a side-by-side battle with the number 19 machine as they fight a little bit further back in the pack for P15. Bordeaux able to get that spot from Brotherton. Now tries to chase down Taylor Hurst. They almost go 3 wide, but Bordeaux gonna stall out through the middle of turn 2. They go by Justin Bolton, blending back onto the racetrack on the back straightaway, and a big run for the 19 of Liam Brotherton to power right back on around the 04. We've been seeing it all night, James. These drivers are able to use that outside line to get a better run off of the corner. Seems like in turn 2 and turn 4, if we're running the middle line, they just seem to stall out and not really go anywhere on the exit. That outside line has a lot of push to it when it comes to the exit of these corners.
Brian Mercurio, Colin Bowden, and Taylor Hurst all back there just on the edge of this and in front of the battle that you saw moments ago. Liam Brotherton, though, in the heart of it, could absolutely use a good finish. Came into tonight 32nd in points. This might be his first finish in the top 20 if it holds. But again, he can definitely use a good run in some way, shape, or form as we continue to roll on towards the final 10 laps of this race. Entering 10 laps to go now. Donovan Strauss across the line, 42.4, 42.4, 42.4 for your race leaders, a 62 to a 44 to a 36. So again, Olot Reynolds faster, but by hundredths, and it's still 9/10 of a second. I think those two in second and third are going to need to figure out something different to try and get to Donovan Strauss.
And now we're starting to see some line evolution as well. As you see, 18 of Olot is the only guy on the inside in 1 and 2. We go into 3 and 4. How'd the lines look? Now we're still going to hug that inside yellow line, but Reynolds was able to run that seam, the inside seam, which is about a lane up on the track in 1 and 2. Same thing, though, happened for your leader, Donovan Strauss. He was also using that seam, and it sounds like from Justin Prince that he just does not like running the inside in 1 and 2, really beginning to get tight. So is the car for Donovan Strauss going away, and can moving up to this outside seam that you see Blake Reynolds on right now actually help him continue to hold this 9/10 of a second gap?
Continuing to roll is Donovan Strauss, just trying to hold out. Meanwhile, here goes Blake Reynolds to the inside of Femiola. Has he had enough in this battle for second, and is he tired of waiting and ready to try and go after Donovan Strauss himself? Ola gave him the spot on corner entry. Reynolds with the thank you across the radio. So now Reynolds is going to try and be the one to reel in Donovan Strauss for a race lead, and that was a quick pass amongst both of them. Ola was 2/10 slower, but Reynolds yet again faster than Donovan Strauss. Is there a shot for Blake Reynolds to go take away this race win in the final stages from the Space Station Gaming driver who has dominated the second half of this race?
Blake Reynolds being told that he has plenty of time and to start working his way into Donovan Strauss. Let's see what is going to happen here as we go on board with Strauss. Marietta, Georgia driver still trying to hold on to this race lead. It's within 1 second. Now it goes over 1 second as they go down the front straightaway. I don't think he's going to have enough for Donovan Strauss. Strauss is still one of the most dominant drivers on the racetrack. And last time by, Blake Reynolds just a hair faster, but Donovan Strauss still holding well in the race lead. They're going to need a lot more if they want to get by that 51.
Justin Prince, any word from our top two, top three across the radios as they line up this final charge to the finish?
Well, when it comes to Blake Reynolds, he had just reported over the radio that as soon as he got the clean air, went to the last couple sets of corners, that he started feeling a lot more looser. Now, as a result of not having that dirty air right up in front of him. Meanwhile, with Donovan Strauss, he has been told to keep doing what he's doing, especially with how he's been running. As mentioned, he is struggling to get the line around the bottom. He feels like he ran that line too long, hence why he's starting to get so tight here. But now coming up to 5 laps to go, it's going to be interesting how things play out. A lot of confidence for some of these drivers here, but a lot of nerves when it comes to Reynolds' camp as well.
Reynolds here just trying to work in the good finish as his Femiola. Garrett Lowe in fourth has been hanging out there too. He's not quite on the same pace as the leaders. It's these front three that have only been able to run in the fours. Everybody else fluctuating between the fives and the sevens, but I don't think there are any complaints amongst any of the top 10. A lot of drivers who could use good finishes going to be in this spot. A lot of drivers who could use the points also in the mix here, and definitely ready to shake up the standings just a bit as we look off the back of Donovan Strauss. That lead is largely stabilized now at about 9/10 of a second. Not much movement over the course of the past 5 laps or so. So I'm wondering if it might take a big bobble from Donovan Strauss to change things up. Meanwhile, further back, there's a good move from Colin Keister and Jake Nichols, who are toe-to-toe, currently working for the first spot outside of the top 5. This is for 6th as Keister goes to the inside of 3.
And this is for Nichols, the first guy who was kicked out of the Pro Series, finishing 21st in points. Came into tonight 2 points below that elimination line. This is a great race for him that he needed to have. And Keister, man, they're just bombing slide chops back and forth. This is so much fun to watch. Both these drivers here, the 24 and the 8, and directly in front of them, Bose and Lowe are doing the exact same thing. You want every point that you can get in this 7-race series. This is race number 3 with 4 to go. You need every single spot possible.
Two drivers that I'd like to highlight that we've not touched much tonight, but I think we'll really like where they're sitting. Blade Witt in 9th and Brian Mercurio in 12th as it stands. In the point standings, Mercurio entered 31st, Witt entered 37th. They stand to make tremendous gains tonight if they can maintain their current running positions for these final handful of laps. So watch those two. They should jump up in the standings if this holds when we get to Nashville in 2 weeks' time. They continue to fight for 4th, though. Alan Bose is the one in control of this, but Garrett Lowe is there. Jake Nichols is there. Colin Keister also there as they try and figure out who's going to take that spot just behind the trio of Strauss, Reynolds, and Ola.
They continue to trade things back and forth as they go down the back straightaway. Donovan Strauss continuing to pull away at the front. But right now, looks like that top 3 is relatively set in stone. Of course, don't want to jinx anything. Anything can still happen with 2 to go. But Strauss leads, then Reynolds, then Olot. And then you have Alan Bose and Garrett Lowe, who are in a bit of a battle for that 4th spot. And then Jake Nichols trying to get up and into this group to try and walk away with the top 5 out of today.
Everybody down low, up top, all over this place. We've seen drivers use every last bit of this racetrack tonight to try and find speed, but they're all still chasing Donovan Strauss. Steven Henry, who's going to come around and get the white flag this time by for what would be his first win of the Contender Series, but another flag planted in the ground in his Road to Pro campaign for 2021.
4 wins in the qualifying series for Donovan Strauss, and now looks to tack on one in the eNASCAR Contender Series. And what this would mean to the points moving into the final 4 races. Came into tonight 15th in points. This will be a massive boost for the 51 team.
A big, big moment for Donovan Strauss. He had talked so much, he was worried about confidence. He knew how poorly this series went for him last year and wanted to make things right. Started off by dominating the qualifying series, winning the championship, and that was worried after week 1 whether or not the bad luck bug is going to begin, but you can see the smile on his face as he comes out of turn 4, a gigantic scream or 2 or 3 of celebration as Donovan Strauss out of Marietta, Georgia brings it home for Space Station Gaming and wins round number 3 of the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series from Auto Club Speedway.
That is exactly how you do it. Bad performance at Phoenix. He improves it at Homestead and now is a winner. You mentioned 1 year ago how bad this series went for Donovan Strauss. He can smile now because he is 1 step closer to the Coke Series. It's not done. He still needs to put together 4 good rounds, but a win at this level is going to feel good for the 51 team.
If there were any doubts about his ability to deliver in this series compared to the qualifying series where the pickings are a little bit easier, I'd like to think that this just put all of those to rest and then some, Devin Henry, because this was as smooth as a run I've seen in a long, long time on a long green flag run to close out a race. It was beautiful work from Donovan Strauss.
And you could see the jubilation when he came across the line. He's still doing it now as he burns it down on the front straightaway. Started 13th, and much like we saw Keister do last week, just meticulously worked his way through the field, partially on strategy, partially on setup, and partially on some bad racing.
Donovan Strauss brings it across the front straightaway here in Southern California and will burn it down across the start-finish line as we will bring you through the full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished. Donovan Strauss, P1, ahead of Blake Reynolds and Femi Olot, who complete the podium in 2nd and 3rd. Alan Bowes was 4th. Garrett Lowe finished in P5. Jake Nichols came home 6th this evening. 7th went to Colin Keister. Kyle Bettle with the season's best 8th place run. Blade Witt equals his best season 9th. And Cody Bias brought it home to complete the top 10, Josh Lee.
Back from there, coming home P11, Caden Honeycutt with Brian Mercurio P12, Colin Bowden, Taylor Hurst, Brandon McKissick is going to round out your top 15. Decent finish for Brian LaPrade. He sits 16th. Zach Nichols, Malik Ray, Nicholas Shelton, and Derek Justice going to round out the top 20.
Derek Bourgeau finishing off in 21st. Santiago Tires has to settle for a 22nd place position. Liam Brotherton in 23rd. Brad Davies moves up from 32nd to 24th. Daniel Eberhardt started dead last. He finishes 25th. Christian Pedersen in 26th. Tough day for Anthony Burrow. Started 5th. Has to take home a 27th place spot. Jordy Lopez in 28th. Michael Cozy Jr. 29th. Brian Schoenberg rounds out the top 30.
Parker Retzlaff with an uncharacteristic slow run today. He was 31st. 32nd was Jake Matheson. Seth DeMerchant finished in the 33rd spot. 34th went to Ashton Crowner. Dylan Alt came home in 35th. 36th went to Ryan Doucette. Justin Bolton finished in 37th. 38th went to Casey Tucker. And 39th, the final position in this field, went to Blake McCandless after his early troubles. He'll be using his job off of this race at Auto Club. That completes your run through the field and your full race rundown. Let's now bring in our race winner from Space Station Gaming, Donovan Strauss. And Donovan, after everything that you went through last year and all that you've gone through these first 3 weeks, do you legitimately feel like you are fast in the Contender Series now that you have a win?
I believe this shows it, yes. God, I worked so hard for this. I was just praying the last 10 laps that there would be no caution, and I was just sitting there and taking deep breaths down the straightaways. And God, this is what all the hard work means like all the hard work goes towards this, and this defines everything. And I'm glad to come into this and finally be able to show what I have. And I don't know what to say, man.
This very much looks like a weight lifted off of your shoulders, just off of what we're seeing on cam. It's very visible in all your expressions. Does it feel like a weight off your shoulders, especially after the nerves you talked about following the Phoenix race?
Yes, this is like such a relief. After Homestead was a relief, this is just to cap that off, because after the Phoenix race, I was obviously down in points, so you don't know what's going to happen because it's a short season. So that was my drop right then and there. So we had to come out to these next few races swinging, and we've brought really good cars. And this win, Boyd Hogan is the man. This car was all him, and he did an amazing job. Like, if it wasn't for him this week, if it wasn't for Vicente, wasn't for Chris Hill, wasn't for Dave, we would not have won this race. Regardless, that car was insane, and I can't thank everybody at Legacy enough. This was a team effort, and it showed.
How much have the folks at Legacy helped you, especially in the transition from ESC? You moved teams middle of the qualifying series season, and looks like that Legacy's really found even more speed than you had. We weren't sure if that was possible, but it almost seems like you've gone up another level from where you were back in, say, July or August.
Yeah, I mean, like, when we have that many people just working on it and we're eventually just going to click minds together. And Boyd, Chris, Dave, myself, Vicente, when it all comes together, it's gonna work like this. And it really showed this week. We sort of got off to a rough start a little bit. We're still coming together, and this week it finally all came together as a team, and we just clicked, and it was outstanding the way we were working together and stuff. And like I said, the car on the long runs, I think no one could touch us. And God, this is the biggest one of my career on here, and I'm so happy, man.
We'll let you breathe and celebrate this one. Take this all in. Donovan, congratulations so much on your first Contender Series win. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at Nashville.
Hold on real quick. I just got to thank SSG, Steel Series champion, Oats Overnight, JD for spotting and the beautiful paint. This was a really nice car tonight. Can't thank them enough.
Donovan Strauss, he won for the first time in his Contender Series career. A big win for the Marietta, Georgia native, and he will carry tons of momentum into Nashville in 2 weeks' time. For now, though, we'll go to second place in Cypress, Texas's Blake Reynolds is with our Josh Lee.
A good run for you tonight, Blake, and pretty much needed at this stage of the Contender Series. How are you feeling after that second place finish?
Pretty good. It's about time I get one of these interviews. It's the first time on the video stuff since we started doing that. Just a really solid race for us. Qualified a lot better than I thought I would, and then it just fell into our hands. We had the pace at the right times. We were able to just go around the people we needed to get around, and passed Femi there right at the end and stayed within Donnie's tracks.
5th place finish at Phoenix, the 19th place finish at Homestead. So that'll be your drop as we go into the Nashville Super Speedway. Brand new track for the Contender Series and for anything in the eNASCAR circle. What's your confidence level at as we get ready to go racing there?
You know, I have two races actually, and one of them unfortunately was the All-Star race, which I did not make it through the Open earlier this year in the Next Gen. So it was an interesting race, more multi-group than I thought, and you really have to slow those cars down. So I'm not sure what these Xfinity cars are going to do, but I'm looking forward to it. We got a great group of guys behind us that are probably looking forward to getting started on that.
Thank you for joining us here post-race, Blake, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time when we go racing in virtual Nashville. Congratulations on your second place finish tonight.
Sure thing. Let me thank Dead Zone Racing, Houston Hamer, Jarrett Liebert, Cody Bias, all the work on the set, Total Advantage, Windshield Deep, One Wraps, Nate Stewart, Apex Action. They are all on board this beautiful car, and you'll see probably some more cool paint scheme stuff coming soon.
We're looking forward to seeing it. Thank you for joining us again, Blake. Great finish for Blake Reynolds. A second place tonight, James. That is definitely going to be helpful for him as he continues to move on in the point standings.
One more driver to talk to, and it's Revere, Massachusetts' Femi Olot, who came home third in his Toyota Supra. He is standing by with our Devin Henry.
The Dead Zone Racing number 18 brings it home on the podium. You were excited about being able to qualify on the podium. You finished on the podium. But, man, what else did you need to make one last run there at the end of that race?
I just needed a better restart on the only caution of the race we had. I lost a bunch of spots, and I was making a lot of ground towards the end of that run, and that 1.4 seconds, in my opinion, was just lost in that restart. But I think overall it was a great race. Just, good to get a good one in.
You came into tonight 16 points above that elimination line. Now you're on the podium, 4 races to go. How do you attack the final half of this Contender Series?
I think you just got a points race. I think even from race 1, you don't know where you're going to run. You don't know how others are going to run. You just got to try to avoid situations that can cost you a lot of points. So I think just for the last 4 races, just, try to run as fast as we can while staying out of trouble.
Femi Olot staying out of trouble so far. Congrats on the podium finish.
Thank you.
Top 3 there. Dead Zone with a good day today, James Pike.
Indeed, Dead Zone coming home second and third. They'll take that every day of the week if you offer it to them on the front end. They've got the ability to go get some wins here in these next few races. But this marks a turning point. It feels like the end of a chapter within this season, because the next 3 races that we're going to run are all on tracks that are a mile and about a third in length or shorter. We're done with any track longer than a mile and a half until the season finale at Texas at the end of December. So not only do we get a break for the Thanksgiving holiday in the United States, but we also get to a different kind of racetrack and a complete wild card by this series standards coming up in our next race at Nashville Superspeedway, which has not seen a points race in official iRacing competition ever. So it'll be an all-new experience for our drivers, Josh.
And talking about the Nashville Superspeedway, it really is a hybrid between a short track and an intermediate. Not exactly as long as an intermediate, but, just a little bit less than a mile and a half, but you got to really break for those corners. We saw in June in the real life side of things of the NASCAR Cup Series, a lot of people comparing it to a short track and the way they break for the corners. A lot of them, they're on the short track package as well, but a lot of them having issues with the brakes because they were not expecting to brake that much at a track that is more suited like an intermediate in terms of length. So we're going to see, like you mentioned, James, a wild card. It's a bumpy surface. It's a surface that eats up tires. We're going to see a lot of the same things that we saw from Phoenix in Nashville, and then going down the rest of the schedule. We still have a bit of time left, but it's only 4 races. In 2 weeks' time, we'll reach over that halfway point. So we're just now reaching that halfway section of the campaign. There's only 4 races that remain. You need to make sure that you're getting points on the board now if you're nervous about getting above that cut line.
And 2 concrete tracks in a row as well. That's also the other thing I think we need to talk about, is we got Nashville in 2 weeks' time, and the race directly following that is at Dover International Speedway, Devin. So that could be fun to watch here. I don't know if you've ever had 2 concrete tracks back-to-back in the Contender Series before.
And Nashville allows that, right? Bringing it into a points-paying race. And, of course, Nashville starting not next week, but the following week on November 30th. And we talk about, hey, yeah, 4 races to go. You got to do this. You got to do that. And we've talked a little bit about the drop weeks. The only people thinking about drop weeks right now are probably about the guys in the bottom 30 in points. There are only 4 races to go, but there's also still 4 races to go. What that tells me, you can't think about a drop week. These next 4 races have to be top 10s, dare I say top 15s, maybe at the worst, if you want to solidify your spot into the next round of the Pro Series here on iRacing for the Coca-Cola Series. So no one's thinking about those drop weeks quite yet until maybe the last week of the year. You are just thinking about going out and putting out a banger of a race every single chance you get.
I think it's something you can't really focus on all that much, especially you look at Blake McCandless's case. This is obviously going to be his drop, so now you just have to go for it. But I sort of think this is the kind of situation where if you got a bad finish already, you can't really worry about trying to beat your drop. You just have to go out and try and get as many points as possible. And just see where everything lines up as we take a look at a few events coming up in the world of iRacing over the course of the next week. Championship races tomorrow and Thursday. Tomorrow, it'll be the folks at the IRX Rallycross World Championship presented by Yokohama taking to the course at Charlotte, heading at 4 p.m. Eastern on November 16th on the iRacing Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channel. And then Thursday, it's the Force Dynamics Delar iRacing Grand Prix Championship from the Hungaroring. We'll crown 2 champions. That race will come your way at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, November 17th, before we're back on air from Nashville, November 30th, 2 Tuesdays from now at 9 p.m. Eastern. All of those races on the iRacing Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube channels. For Tyler Hudson, Drew Adamson, Sean Ambrose, Cisco Scaramuza, and Corey Revenge at iRacing, for Gary Sexton, John Theodore, and our team at Podium Esports, for our producer Ryan Bauer, camera builder Dougie Beard, and our team in the booth and on the pit road this evening, Justin Prince, Josh Lee, and Evan Henry. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our coverage of the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series from Auto Club Speedway. Congratulations to our race winner Donovan Strauss, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time from the Music City in Nashville Superspeedway.